If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
You are listening to Mindshock True Crime. We are taking a look at the infamous disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley in this episode. This is probably the most well-known cruise ship disappearance in modern history. It has been requested many, many times on Mindshock, and we are, of course, going to do a comprehensive deep dive with logic and reason at the forefront, attempting not to fall for any logical fallacies, while trying to make sense of this puzzling case and the many, many different theories that stem from it, including various sightings, international trafficking rings, and many, many conflicting statements. As always, if you enjoy the Mindshock podcast, find it interesting and informative, want to help support the podcast, want to help keep up awareness in unsolved cases, missing persons cases, wrongful convictions, and more, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. You could also be a YouTube member right here on YouTube for access to exclusive streams and chats. Help support the channel that way. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis, co-podcast requests. You can also be a guest on the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. All right, so I believe every true crime aficionado has heard of this case. I had seen a few things about the case. I'd read about the case in the past. But, now it's time for an absolute deep dive, including footage of Amy Lynn Bradley at the cruise ship. Some people believe certain individuals can be visible in the background that may or may not have had something to do with her disappearance or leading to her disappearance in some way. Now, the other reason this case is so difficult is because the cruise ship industry as a whole has a history of covering up a certain element of crime, not just disappearances, but various other drug crime and such. There's various lawsuits and cover-ups. Some people believe the Amy Lynn Bradley case is caught up in the middle of this, and they've even found certain connections between law firms. So we'll be, of course, taking a look at that as well, but let's start off with the usual Wikipedia breakdown, just to set the stage of what is commonly reported, what is commonly known, and then we will get into Mindshock land for the deep dives and examining every single possible line of evidence and every single possible theory. Amy Lynn Bradley, born May 12, 1974, is an American woman who went missing during a Caribbean cruise on the Royal Caribbean International cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas in late March 1998 at the age of 23 while en route to Curacao. Her whereabouts remain unknown to this day. She was a 23-year-old Longwood University graduate at the time of her disappearance. What's curious is they don't state a date here. They just say late March. I mean, that's kind of weird. We'll be getting into that more later. After midnight on Monday, March 23rd, 1998, Amy and her younger brother, Brad, headed to the Wait. Is the brother's name Brad Bradley? Or does he have a different last name? It doesn't say here. If your last name was Bradley, would you name your son Brad? Brad Bradley? I mean, that has a certain ring to it. I mean, sounds like a musician's name, possibly. Records show that Brad decided to return to his cabin earlier than Amy. The ship's door lock records show that Brad had entered his cabin at around 3:35 a.m. And already here we're getting into the 3:30 a.m. witching hour, etc., etc. Amy soon followed 5 minutes later. The two chatted before heading to bed. Amy's father, Ron, awoke at around 6 a.m. to check on his daughter, only to find her missing from the balcony she earlier had slept on. When authorities were alerted that Amy was missing, the Netherlands Antilles Coast Guard conducted a 4-day search in the surrounding waters and along the cruise lines to no result. Authorities began to speculate that she may have fallen overboard and drowned, but investigators have rejected this theory as Amy was known to be a strong swimmer and searches turned up no sign of her. There have been possible sightings of Bradley in Curacao. In August 98, tourists saw a woman resembling Bradley on a beach, and in 1999, a member of the U.S. Navy claimed a woman in a brothel said she was Bradley and asked him for help. And we'll, of course, be doing a deep dive on that encounter. Very, very creepy. In the years after Amy's disappearance, there would arise some new evidence leading to theories including Amy being sold into a human trafficking industry or potential remains. The case has been presented on Dr. Phil in a segment entitled The Search for Natalie Amy Bradley. The case was also presented on America's Most Wanted. You know what's weird, too? Like in a lot of cases, the coincidence theorists, the authority-worshipping cultist crowd, the mentally weak goofs who they want to pretend that human trafficking isn't that widespread or doesn't happen. And it's just so weird. I mean, I guess they're just that mentally weak that they just can't handle living in a world where people can be abducted and sold into human trafficking. I mean, yeah, there's plenty of cases where they're not sold into human trafficking, obviously, but that doesn't mean every single case is definitely 100% not human trafficking. I mean, it's just a weirdness you see online in true crime discussion. It's just one of these weird things where obviously the illogical coincidence theorists hallucinate. It's just not a possibility for whatever reason. So the parents here does say Ron Bradley and Eva Bradley. So is the brother really Brad Bradley? I mean, this is definitely mind shock. All right, background. Amy Lynn Bradley was born on May 12, 1974 in Petersburg, Virginia. She was a resident of Chesterfield County, Virginia. She attended a local university, Longwood University, graduating with a degree in physical education. She attended with a scholarship in basketball and was known for her strong swimming abilities, as well as previously worked as a lifeguard. Amy was planning to start a new job at a computer consulting firm after she graduated university. As a celebratory event, Amy decided to join her family on a cruise vacation on the Royal Caribbean International cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas en route for Curacao, a Dutch Caribbean island under the Kingdom of the Netherlands. You know, it's weird though, just a point, there's also people that argue she couldn't have drowned because she was a strong swimmer. Strong swimmers drown all the time too, especially when inebriated. So, yeah, I mean, that's something also on that side of it, the people that say she definitely couldn't have drowned. I mean, it's a theoretical possibility, is it not? Drunk people on the balcony. Now, whether she was suicidal or not, you don't have to be suicidal to have an accident. Now, the exact mechanics of how someone could have an accident in that state, I mean, who knows? But again, it's not like this thing is happening every single day. Obviously, it happens more often than people think, but it's not happening in such astronomical numbers. Let's get the exact numbers, actually. So apparently the numbers are... Wow, not that many. So between 2000 and 2016, so over 16 years, there were 270 fall overboard cases. It doesn't say they died or drowned, though. Just fell overboard. So that comes out to approximately 25 people per year. So that's 1 to 2 people per month. Other estimates are closer to 19 per year. So anywhere between 19 and 25 people per year. There are an average of 200 deaths occurring on cruise ships each year. I mean, that says on the ship, though. Not specifically falling off and drowning. Approximately 60 injuries. Just in general, not from falling off the ship. 20 people die on cruise ships per year. 25 fall off. So yeah, of the ones that fall off, they don't all die. I don't know why it's so difficult to find the numbers of how many people actually drown and die from falling off. It does say that it actually is very rare for people to survive. So 28% are rescued. So 48 out of 212 were rescued. So if there's only a 28% rescue rate, so yeah, most of them die. So we're looking at around 15 people dying from falling overboard per year. So again, yes, it doesn't happen every single day. It is relatively rare. Is this one of the cases where this happened? Obviously, this is Mind Shock, where we do not claim anything is true or untrue. I mean, there's still goofs just in all of these comment sections attempting to say that I'm actually claiming anything is true or untrue, or any theory is true or untrue. Obviously, this is Mind Shock. We don't hallucinate to know what happened or didn't happen. All we can do is logically analyze all these different theories. So let's continue on here. Prior to the disappearance, March 21st, 1998, Amy and her family boarded the cruise towards Curacao. Prior to the time of the disappearance, Amy and her brother Brad decided to stay up late dancing to a Mardi Gras nightclub party on the ship and drink alcohol with the ship's band Blue Orchid. One of the band's members, Alistair Douglas, otherwise known as Yellow, was drinking with Amy that night, where he claimed that he left the party around 1 a.m. At the time, a videographer known as Chris Fenwick was also able to capture the moment where Amy and Yellow were dancing. After a couple of hours, Brad decided to rest for the night at the family's cabin around 3:35 a.m. The ship's computerized door lock system recorded that Brad returned. Well, how would they know it was him that returned, though? It says computerized door lock, so the door lock recorded being unlocked at 3:35. Now, if there's also security camera footage or something that can corroborate it was specifically Brad, I don't see that here. So as of right now, I mean, can we only say that the door lock system was unlocked at 3:35 a.m., where Amy followed 5 minutes later? Or if there's no corroboration of this, the lock was unlocked again 5 minutes later. Brad reported that he and his sister sat on the suite's balcony and talked before he went to sleep, while Amy stayed awake for a while longer before she fell asleep shortly after. So she fell asleep on the balcony? Doesn't state here. Disappearance. Between the times of 5:15 a.m. and 5:30 a.m. March 24th, 1998, Amy's father, Ron, woke up and got up to check on the status of his children, where he saw Amy still sleeping on the lounge chair of their cabin's balcony. Okay. So I'm not going to go into different theories just yet. Let's finish the breakdown here. Ron told local papers, quote, "Could see Amy's legs from her hips down. I dozed back off to sleep. The balcony door was closed because if it hadn't been closed, I would have gotten up and closed it," end quote. So he saw her legs. Now, could he be 100% certain it was her legs? Groggy in the morning, and I don't know, because he went right back to sleep. And some people allege she was already dead at that point. We'll be getting into those theories later. When he got up at 6 a.m., however, she was missing along with her cigarettes and lighter. Okay, so 5:15 to 5:30 a.m., he sees supposedly her legs. Supposedly matching the location that Brad said she fell asleep. Now, anywhere between 30 and 45 minutes later, she's gone. So, are we assuming now she disappeared during daylight? Is this after dawn? Or slightly before dawn, or at the crack of dawn? He said later, "I left to try and go find her. When I couldn't find her, I didn't really know what to think because it was very much unlike Amy to leave and not tell us where she was going." After Ron searched the common areas of the cruise, Ron woke up the rest of the family and told them Amy was missing at 6:30 a.m. So he looked for her for about a half an hour. Investigation. Amy's family immediately reported the missing case to the onboard crew, where they continued to plead with the crew members to keep the 2,000 passengers from disembarking the cruise and to make an announcement to assist in finding Amy. However, the team at the purser's office informed them that it was too early to make a ship-wide announcement. Now, this is a tough case, too, because if this is 6:30-ish, and she's only, because he claims to have actually seen her, or did he not tell them that? Did he tell them she was missing from the night before? Because if somebody's missing for 1 hour, I mean, I don't know. It's on a cruise, it's a confined area, but yeah, I mean, what is someone to do? Is the crew really going to make an announcement less than an hour if somebody's missing? I mean, I don't know. What should they do? Maybe. Okay, so the crew agreed to issue an announcement at 7:50 a.m. after a majority of the passengers left the ship, announcing, quote, "Will Amy Bradley please come to the purser's desk," end quote. Between 12:15 and 1 p.m., the cruise staff searched through the ship but could not find Amy. The delay that the crew put on the search and the investigation of the disappearance has been said to have led to lowering the chance of finding Amy by allowing the passengers to disembark, ignoring the Bradley family's advice. So, I mean, what are they thinking? That one of the passengers left with Amy? Or if one of the passengers killed Amy, threw her overboard, and then left, I mean, at that point it would have been too late. But one of the biggest curiosities of this case is, of course, the timeline window. Because if he really did see her legs, because he's stating here he could see Amy's legs from her hips down. So is that 100% definitive verification that it's her legs? And if so, did he see her stomach moving up and down? Could he verify that the person in the chair was still alive, or did he just assume that? I mean, this is a tight window here because she's there. I mean, is it? Yeah, it's tough. It's really, really tough with this because is it possible she really did disappear the night before? But then how would that explain? How would this be explained? Yeah, I don't know. It's really tough here. It's really tough. The Dutch Caribbean Coast Guard conducted a 4-day search that ended on March 27th, 98, and Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines chartered a boat to continue looking for her. The Coast Guard used 3 helicopters and a radar plane to assist in the search. Possible sightings. Initially, the authorities suspected that Amy had either fallen overboard or committed suicide. You know what's weird is just these automatic assumptions of suicide. I mean, even let's say she was documented as being suicidal. Let's say she'd had a bunch of other suicide attempts. Obviously, I'm not saying that, or a person who had gone missing, not specifically Amy here. Just because there's a history of suicide attempts, there's no magical Dungeons and Dragons spell that protects a suicidal person from harm from other predators or other humans. I mean, this is a weird hallucination that a lot of coincidence theorists or just the Dunning-Kruger crowd, they just hallucinate that if someone's suicidal, they must have committed suicide, and they're just all of these potential criminals or actual criminals, serial killers, whoever, they would just magically leave alone anybody who's suicidal. It's really weird. And of course, even someone suicidal, particularly females, they don't follow through. They don't successfully commit suicide. Whereas males statistically are more likely to actually follow through and not just attempt. But however, this speculation was soon discredited as Amy was known to be a strong swimmer and her body was never found in the waters, as well as no evidence of foul play. So also, do we know exactly how well the waters were searched? So this is the 90s, late 90s. I mean, obviously there's a good amount of technology. They did use radar planes, but again, it's I mean, yeah, you would think if it was an extremely thorough search, if the body was there, they would have found it, but who knows? On the morning of the disappearance, 2 passengers told Ron that they saw a woman matching Amy's description taking an elevator to the ship's deck with cigarettes and a lighter. However, this did not lead to any findings. So not 1, but 2 passengers. Another witness was a cab driver, where he stated that a woman matching Amy's description approached him and said she urgently needed a phone. This sighting was never confirmed by authorities. The other thing with the Dunning-Kruger crowd and the authority-worshipping cultists, the coincidence theorists, they hallucinate that if a sighting wasn't confirmed, it wasn't a real sighting and it should just be dismissed. If it wasn't confirmed, that just means we have no way of knowing whether it was or it wasn't legitimate, so it could have been her. And even sightings that are confirmed, that doesn't mean they're really true. I mean, there's just this weird hallucination by a lot of coincidence theorists, authority-worshipping cultists that police don't make mistakes. So-called authorities don't make mistakes. They're completely infallible. And this is why so many cases are unsolved, because of these weird hallucinations. Obviously, on Mind Shock, we don't commit these logical fallacies like appeal to authority or any of these hallucinations that humans are infallible or any of that nonsense. In August 98, a Canadian computer engineer claimed to have seen Amy walking down with 2 men on a beach in Curacao 5 months after the disappearance was made public. So this is kind of weird, though. If she was taken for human trafficking, would they still be in the exact area, hanging out on a beach in the exact area where she was taken from 5 months later? Unless one wants to argue that they just, were on the down low for all these months, and then 5 months later they ventured out. But what are they doing? Just hanging out on the beach? Well, actually, this is kind of weird. The witness noted that the woman was constantly trying to get his attention until he lost sight of her at a nearby cafe. The woman's tattoos were reportedly identical to Bradley's, and the man said he was 2 feet away from her, and he was sure it was her with complete certainty. Would she be? So this is kind of weird, though. I mean, obviously we have Stockholm Syndrome. We have a few different psychological conditions or just outright fear. But if a human trafficking victim is in public with, let's say, 2 men with her, would she make a run for it? Or had she made runs for it in the past and was beaten for it, so now she felt like she couldn't get away? I mean, it's kind of hard to... Some people say, oh, well, if it was really her, she would have just ran away. But, I mean, it's really hard to know that for certain. I mean, obviously, everybody's different. And then if you're being held for months and months, particularly if there have been previous unsuccessful attempts for which there were consequences, yeah, I mean, it's tough to really say what someone would or wouldn't do in that situation. In January 1999, a U.S. Navy petty officer claimed to have seen a woman who claimed to be Amy Bradley at a brothel in Curacao. He claimed she told him that her name was Amy Bradley, and she begged him for help, explaining that she was held against her will and not allowed to leave, and did not report the incident earlier as he feared for his career in the Navy, having been in a brothel. I mean, is that really true, though? I mean, the Navy in particular has a certain reputation with brothels, but so do all military. I mean, it's kind of weird. Would he really... I mean, how high-ranking was he? He was a petty officer? I mean, petty officers are junior, mid-grade, non-commissioned officer. They are typically equal to a sergeant in comparison to other military branches. Okay, so not the lowest on the totem pole. Obviously nowhere near the highest, but not the lowest. So, okay, but still. The witness only contacted Amy's family after he retired and saw her picture in a magazine. There was no evidence to support the witness's claim. And again, hard to say what somebody would do. One could argue even a more honorable officer who is still fearing for his reputation might have carried her out of there and left her at a police station, unless some believe the local police were involved in human trafficking, which, of course, there's documented evidence of. I'm not talking about in Curacao, but in certain areas of the world, there's, of course, been documented evidence of police being complicit, involved on the payoff. I don't know what level of corruption exists in Curacao, but the whole thing is kind of weird. Would she have really still been in the exact area where she was taken? Is that common of human trafficking victims? I don't know anything about human trafficking in that particular area and in cruise ships, but generally in other areas of the world, victims are usually taken elsewhere, sometimes even overseas. I mean, were there a lot of posters? I mean, how much awareness was being spread in Curacao of the disappearance? I mean, it's a little weird. There was another potential sighting in March 2005 when a witness named Judy Morer claimed to have seen Bradley in a department store restroom in Barbados. She claimed a woman entered the restroom accompanied by 3 men who proceeded to threaten her if she did not follow through on a deal. She alleges that after the men left, she approached the distraught woman who had said that her first name was Amy and that she was from Virginia. See, this is a problem because if the account is true, okay, Amy's a very common name, so that means almost nothing. So she's from Virginia, so that's a 1/50th chance if she's from the U.S. and far greater if she's, because this is Barbados, so this isn't even in the U.S. So theoretically, you'd have to add in all the different states, provinces, districts, and all these Western countries and European countries. So statistically, if this woman is telling the truth, an Amy from Virginia in this Caribbean area, I mean, obviously that carries a bit more weight. So she said she was from Virginia before the men re-entered and took her away. Maurer called the authorities, and they created composite sketches of the three men and the woman based on her account. Wow. Okay. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues here. A lot of issues. Events after the disappearance. In more recent years, Amy's case has been revisited a couple of times. The cold case has resurfaced in America's Most Wanted and an episode on Dr. Phil. In the fall of '99, Amy's parents received an email from a self-proclaimed Navy SEAL soldier, Frank Jones. I wonder if that's his real name. Frank told the family that he was a former U.S. Army special officer with a team of experienced soldiers who might be able to rescue Amy. Jones had claimed that his team had seen Amy being held by heavily armed Colombian personnel in a housing complex surrounded by barbed wire. The team also gave an accurate description of Amy's tattoos and sang the lullaby that Amy's mother used to sing for Amy. Wow. I mean, that's kind of crazy. Over the next few months, Frank would feed news to the family and provide reports on sightings of their daughter. When Jones told them they were going to attempt a rescue, he added that more funds were needed. The Bradleys sent Jones a total of $210,000 to fund the setup for Amy's search and had expected a call from Jones and his team for the results of the rescue mission that never came. Jones had made the story up and had tried to scam the Bradleys of money. In February 2002, federal prosecutors in Richmond charged him with defrauding the Bradleys of $24,444 and the National Missing Children's Organization of $186,416. Jones pled guilty in April of mail fraud and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. You know what's weird, though? So he just guessed the lullaby? I mean, how many different lullabies are there? I mean, there's not infinite lullabies, but... The other weird thing is, so in fall of '99, so this was after her tattoos were made public, so that wouldn't necessarily be surprising, would it? But the weird thing is, and again, this is mind shock, I am not going to discount any possibility, if there is widespread corruption, and it isn't some kind of high-ranking trafficking scheme, possibly involving U.S. government officials, would they simply bribe Jones or threaten him into saying that it was a scam, even if it wasn't? See, this is something coincidence theorists, they're just too mentally weak to even consider. I'm not saying this is true in any way. I'm not saying this is even likely. But I'm saying if it were true, obviously, people can be bribed or threatened. I mean, this isn't rocket science. I mean, this always takes me back to the alien autopsy for some reason. If you haven't checked out the Mind Shock episode on the alien autopsy, so there's a claim that the guys that made it up, they admitted to it. And for whatever reason, coincidence theorists, authority-worshipping cultists, they pretend that under no circumstances, if it were real, that anyone would ever be paid off to say that it was fake. I mean, it's just this level of goofery. We're living in really weird times. Not that that's true, but obviously that's a theoretical possibility, a very strong one if there's some kind of level of corruption involved or, you know, discrediting people. So that's my thought there, but where is he claiming that this housing complex surrounded by barbed wire, where is he claiming that this is exactly? Another incident involved the finding of a jawbone that was washed ashore in Aruba in 2010. Initially, it was thought to be the jawbone of another missing persons case, Natalie Holloway, but once the jawbone was cleared of Holloway, I will be doing a Natalie Holloway podcast. That's also been highly requested. There's a lot of problems with that case, obviously. It's just, there's so many problems with that case. Authorities ceased any further testing despite the fact that there were 9 other Caribbean vacationers that were said to be missing. No DNA testing was done on the material. They say that the bone is human and was likely from a Caucasian origin. Well, why haven't they tested it? Again, just weirdness. Bradley's mother and father appeared on the November 17th, 2005 episode of Dr. Phil. An image of a young woman resembling Bradley that was emailed to her parents was shown on the program, and it would suggest that she might have been sold into sexual slavery. An email was sent to the Bradley family website containing 2 photographs of a woman that closely resembled Amy. The photographs were observed by a member of an organization that attempts to track victims on sites that feature sex workers. The woman in the photo has said to appear distraught and despondent and was a sex worker known as Jazz. Jas. And we'll be diving deeper there because there have actually been some so-called amateur sleuths that have followed up with that. Theories on the disappearance. There are some theories that are circulating the internet in regard to the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley. One of these theories was that she was kidnapped and sold into the illegal human trafficking industry in the Caribbean. This theory is supported by various sources of evidence, including a key witness from a U.S. Navy officer, claiming that he heard a worker at a brothel in the Caribbean claiming to be Amy, and a 2005 photo that was emailed to Amy's family. Another piece of evidence would include the inconsistencies of the witnesses on the night of the disappearance. In People magazine, Amy's mother stated, quote, "I remember watching people watch her admiringly," and later goes on to say, "Amy would have been a trophy," end quote. This theory also includes suspicions of the staff and band members on the cruise on the night of the disappearance. One of these suspicions include an inconsistent story that the band member Yellow presented to the authorities as opposed to what CCTV has captured that night. Many people suspected that the waiter was also involved with the disappearance. Throughout the night, Amy's family was approached by the same waiter asking to pass on a note to Amy for him involving an invitation for her to go drinking with him once they reached the shore. In addition, the professional photographer had printed out all the photos taken throughout the cruise to sell at the stall, but the family could not find any of Amy's photos, making them think that the photos had been removed by somebody. Wow. That is kind of weird, especially if he took tons of photos, because he printed out photos throughout the cruise. So assuming he took photos of most of, I mean, especially if she's dancing front and center at a nightclub, you would think there would be some photos of her, or at least in the background at some point. Another theory authorities considered was that Amy was murdered on the ship and thrown overboard. However, the only evidence supporting this is the discovery of a jawbone which washed ashore on a beach in Aruba. Also keep in mind there's several other disappearances. The final theory includes Amy falling overboard or committing suicide as initially suggested by the authorities. Amy Lynn Bradley was declared legally dead on March 24th, 2010, 12 years after the disappearance, with no witnesses and no body found. And there's plenty to go over on the reasoning behind that as well. But just to touch upon, again, the staff at on the cruise ship that her parents thought might be responsible in some way, this reminds me of more than one story of actual bartenders slipping, even female bartenders, slipping drugs into young women's drinks to be taken away by traffickers all over the world. I mean, not just in first world countries, obviously. To think that that's completely impossible on a cruise ship, I mean, that's appeal to incredulity is a logical fallacy for a reason. I mean, I don't know if there's precedent on cruise ships, but there's clearly precedent at restaurants and bars and other establishments. Aftermath and rewards. The FBI is currently offering a reward of up to $25,000 for any information that could potentially lead to the recovery of Amy Lynn Bradley or leads to an arrest or conviction of the person or persons responsible for Amy's disappearance. On top of this, the family is offering $250,000 for information leading to her safe return. And the family also has a reward of $50,000 for information leading to her current location. Her case was featured on America's Most Wanted and the television show Disappeared. Her case was also the subject of episode 59 on the Case File podcast and the podcast Crime Junkie and the Casual Criminalist. And now on Mind Shock. Renewed attention was paid to her case after the disappearance of Natalie Holloway in 2005. Yeah, this is definitely a tough one. This is perplexing to say the least. I am, of course, bothered by the inconsistent witness statements. I mean, the photographer on the cruise not having a single picture of Amy, not even in the background anywhere. I mean, that's kind of weird. Who else finds that kind of weird? And then, of course, the crew personnel who may have had nothing to do with her being trafficked, but simply not wanting to cause any kind of panic or alarm by issuing an immediate warning or notice or whatever, before all these passengers disembarked. Okay, so let's go a little deeper into the sightings on the ship, and then we'll get to the other sightings. So Ranker.com actually has a write-up here, shocking facts about Amy Lynn Bradley, the woman who disappeared at sea, posted by Phil Gibbons, September 23rd, 2021. March 24th, 98, Amy Lynn Bradley went missing from a cruise ship en route to Curacao from Aruba. Although the disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley did not initially generate the same media response precipitated by other cruise ship disappearances, over time, the baffling circumstances of her case and repeated accounts of her being sighted throughout the Caribbean have elevated the mystery surrounding her fate to a high-profile incident. Additionally, a sinister photograph purportedly of Amy surfaced on a maturely themed website in 2005 and added fuel to the theory that the missing woman was forced to sell her body. Around 20 years after the mysterious disappearance, theories about what happened to Amy Lynn Bradley only add to the uncertainty and dread surrounding one of the most disturbing missing persons cases in history. So there are a few new details here that are quite curious, so let's go over them. Amy Bradley left her family's stateroom and was never seen again. March 23rd, 98, Ron and Eva Bradley, their 23-year-old daughter Amy, and their son Brad were enjoying their third day on the Royal Caribbean cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas. As the ship docked in Curacao after visiting Aruba, the family attended a dinner party on the upper deck of the ship. Amy and Brad both danced until the early morning hours, and Amy was seen dancing with a band member on a ship disco dance floor. However, both Brad and Amy entered their stateroom between 3:30 and 4 a.m. And again, I ask, exactly how was that corroborated on the CCTV? Ron Bradley would recall seeing his daughter in a chair on the room's balcony when he briefly woke up at approximately 5 a.m. And another thing, too, did he just randomly wake up, or did he hear something, or possibly a person outside, didn't realize that that's what woke him up, but simply didn't see that individual? When he woke up again around 6, Amy was gone. The only missing items were her cigarettes and a lighter. She clearly intended to leave briefly, as she did not even bring shoes, ID, or any other important items with her. Her family never saw her again. I'm not sure about that, because this is presupposing she left of her own volition, and I'm still trying to figure out if it can be 100% determined that that was her on the balcony. And if she was alive. Because if someone's trying to frame this as she left, they could have carried her out and taken her cigarettes and lighter. Because obviously anybody that's, has any kind of wherewithal, obviously this wouldn't be some kind of emotionally distraught psycho. If this is all part of a human trafficking ring and they're well-versed in staging disappearances, clearly they would grab the cigarettes and lighter to make it appear like she went out for a smoke. A 2005 website photograph showed someone similar to Amy. Since her disappearance in 98, there have been several alleged sightings of Amy Lynn Bradley. The most disturbing was a 2005 email sent to the Bradley family website, which contained 2 photographs of a woman. These photographs were observed by a member of an organization that attempts to track potential victims on sites that feature sex workers. The photos depict a scantily clad woman who closely resembles Amy, but who also appears to be both distraught and despondent. One of these photos was seen publicly when the Bradley family appeared on the Dr. Phil show. A U.S. serviceman claims to have encountered Amy in a brothel. Another disturbing sighting occurred in January 99 when a Navy petty officer claimed to have encountered Amy in a hotel brothel in Curacao. Recognizing him as American, Amy supposedly told the individual her name, said that she was being held against her will, and asked for help. Unfortunately, the officer kept the information to himself, fearing the repercussions that would come with his solicitation of a sex worker. He only contacted the Bradleys through the website after his retirement. I mean, still, putting yourself in his shoes. If you're particularly like a big, strong military man, would you? Yes, obviously it's understandable that he did not want to be known that he visited such a place. That's fine. Why not carry her out of there, drop her a block from the police station and watch her walk into the station from a distance? I mean, there's a lot of ways to do this. I mean, this isn't a hotel brothel. I mean, was it heavily armed with like mafioso type human traffickers? Because if so, that's a problem. If not, I mean, what's the deal there? We'll get back to that later. A band member may have been involved in Amy's abduction. After dinner On the evening of March 23rd, Amy Bradley entered the disco of the ship and was observed dancing continuously with a member of a band that was performing on the ship. This individual, Alistair Yellow Douglas, and Amy were even videotaped repeatedly by a camera person producing a promotional piece for the cruise line. Footage surfaced when the video producer heard about Amy's disappearance and assumed she must be in some of the video from the evening in question. After Amy left her room, she was seen near the disco with Douglas at approximately 6 a.m. So hold on a second. Mind-blowing information. So she went back, well, not in the disco, near the disco with Douglas at 6 a.m. A witness would subsequently claim to have seen Douglas hand Bradley a dark drink, possibly coffee. Other witnesses saw Douglas leaving the area by himself, but Amy was never seen again. Police eventually cleared Douglas after a polygraph, but before the FBI got a hold of the disco video. So, and this was not police that cleared him? This was local police, not FBI? I mean, this is kind of weird. Was he ever reinvestigated or re-interviewed by FBI or more experienced people other than local police? I mean, the phrasing here is it says the police cleared him, not the FBI. Now, what's weird here, the other witnesses that claimed he left by himself, were those his buddies and fellow traffickers? So the witness that saw him with Amy, is that a legit witness? And then the other witnesses provided him the alibi to throw everybody off the trail. Is that what happened there? But let's go a little deeper here. Actually, before we get into that, I actually don't even recall this witness. Also from the Ranker right up here, I mean, this is total mind shock land. Like, all the coincidence theorists better hold on to their hats here. Even before Amy disappeared, there were a few odd instances around the ship. 3 of the waiters on the ship were quite friendly with Amy almost immediately. While the ship was docked in Aruba, one of them even asked Amy's father about her whereabouts by name. And so they were only on this cruise ship for a few days. Was it 3 days? And they were already that friendly, knew her by name. When asked why he was looking for her, he told Mr. Bradley that they, presumably members of the waitstaff, wanted to take her to Carlos and Charlie's, the same bar that Natalie Holloway disappeared from in 2005. Amy subsequently told her father that the waiters gave her the creeps and that she didn't want anything to do with them. That night, when the ship staff posted photos taken of all the dinner participants, Amy's mother noticed that all of her daughter's photos were missing, despite the gallery supervisor clearly remembering they were posted earlier. So not only do we have verification that Amy was in all these photos, but we also supposedly, again, if this was vetted and not just from whoever, the gallery supervisor clearly remembered they were posted earlier. So they were all posted. Somebody took all her photos down. That's kind of weird. Now, let's not fall for false dichotomies here. It's very possible that these were creepy waiters that liked Amy and had nothing to do with her disappearance. They were just these creepy scumbags that wanted to take her to a bar and who knows what else, but they weren't responsible for whatever happened to her. They were separate from the potential traffickers or just the potential individual that could have harmed her or taken her away. I mean, this is really, really weird. Anyone else find it weird that the members of the waitstaff wanted to take her to Carlos and Charlie's? Like, what goes on in that bar? Another note I found here on Lilith Nova Blogspot. She apparently brought 9 pairs of shoes on the cruise trip, but she didn't take a single pair, so not a single pair was missing. And so there is security footage of her near the disco with Douglas at approximately 6 a.m. Wow, this is also insane. A few more details here from Lilith Nova Blogspot. By the time the search of the ship began at 8 a.m., many of the ship's guests and staff already left the vessel for the day. The family was told that no announcement would be made, no photographs would be posted concerning Amy's disappearance, as this would be too disturbing to other passengers. The Bradleys left the ship in Curacao, but flew to Sint Maarten and reboarded the cruise ship when they were told by the FBI the search for Amy had only included bathrooms and common areas and ignored staterooms and employee living quarters. That's kind of insane. So they never even searched, they only searched the bathrooms and common areas somewhere where if somebody was kidnapped Amy, obviously she wouldn't be there. So they didn't search any employee areas or any rooms, any private rooms. I mean, this is insane. The FBI eventually boarded the ship, but their investigation went nowhere. And Royal Caribbean went on to claim Amy probably was intoxicated and fell overboard, despite having no evidence such an incident occurred. The waters in the sea were searched, and no sign of Amy emerged. The FBI conducted a thorough investigation of Amy Bradley, her hometown friends, co-workers, neighbors. The rest of her family also successfully underwent polygraph examinations, and even her college athletic coaches were interviewed and exonerated. FBI found that Amy sent numerous postcards on the first days of the voyage, had just adopted a dog, recently graduated from college, and was supposed to start a new job. In other words, hardly the behaviors or outlooks of someone who was suicidal or intent on disappearing. All of the background checks and investigations pointed to an involuntary disappearance. Also, some more information about the August 98 sighting. A Canadian encountered 2 men and a woman walking on the beach near Port of Maria in Curacao. When he spoke in a loud voice in English to a friend who was a few feet away, the woman suddenly turned around and began to walk in his direction. Just as the woman was about to speak with him, one of the 2 men distinctly signaled her to walk away. Then they grabbed her and shuffled her into a small cafe. On the way, she kept trying to point out her tattoos to the Canadian man. And while in the coffee shop, continued to stare at the Canadian man. I mean, that's really creepy. So what is she doing? She's like, if she's got some kind of tank or t-shirt, is she like rolling up the sleeve and pointing to her tattoos or something? He had no idea who Amy was until he eventually saw her profiled on the television show Unsolved Mysteries. When he contacted the Bradleys, he was able to describe Amy's distinctive tattoos as he observed her from only a few feet away. He claims to be 100% sure the woman he saw was Amy Bradley. So True Crime Diva posted this article on Evil at Sea, Disappearance of Amy Bradley, September 30th, 2012, with a little bit more information about the witness who saw her with the band member. A witness claimed she saw Amy with Yellow at 6 a.m. in the disco. The witness was up early because she was going to disembark at Curacao, so she decided to go to the disco to wait. Yellow brought Amy a dark drink, coffee or Coke, it is presumed. The witness left the disco shortly after that. The woman took a polygraph and passed and testified before a grand jury. So some people who just dismissed the witness as mistaken, apparently here, she testified before a grand jury and was even polygraphed. Obviously, brain fingerprint scanning is the way to go these days, but I mean, yeah, this was not just a rumor or someone making a casual statement. She actually testified before a grand jury. Other witnesses saw Yellow after he left the disco in the glass elevator. He was alone. I also read that Amy was with him. So apparently, this is where we go to the rumor mill, because some apparently unsubstantiated or possibly misreported or non-definitive witnesses, some say he was alone, some say he's with her. I mean, that's kind of weird. Now this photograph here. Okay, so here's a little bit more to the story. In 1999, an American sailor reported he went to a brothel on Curacao and was approached by a young woman who told him her name was Amy Bradley. She asked for his help. At this point, 2 men in the bar escorted her upstairs. Fearing he would get in trouble by higher-ups for being at the brothel, he didn't mention the sighting until months later. By that time, the brothel had burned down. So it wasn't a case of him already being upstairs and wandering around rooms. So there were 2 men who escorted her upstairs. So she walked up to him in a lobby. It doesn't say lobby. He went to a brothel. He was approached by a young woman. So was it some kind of common area where he was approached by her and 2 men escorted her upstairs? So did they hear what she was saying? And that's why they escorted her upstairs? So this is a good amount of time later. I mean, that's a little weird. Now, in this photograph here, 2005, HYScience.com received pictures from a reader, Alan Kay. He says he found the following images on an adult website. Now, this woman clearly does look like Amy Lynn Bradley. She would have been about 31 years old, which she does look in the range of. I mean, it's definitely weird. We're going to actually get to that as well. Some interesting comments here. Superman 2050, this is all on True Crime Diva. Superman 2050 posted this September 25th, 2020. It's possible she can be in Cuba right now. The police need to search there. Now, is that just a random comment? I mean, that's kind of a specific comment. I mean, the Caribbean is quite vast. I mean, he specifically said Cuba. Some people think there's ties to South America as well, but... Stacy posted this January 6, 2017. I was shocked when I read this story. I feel for my opinion the captain of the ship was involved, and Alistair Douglas feel captain of the cruise has to be involved in this horrid human trafficking because anybody's initial reaction would be to block off all the ship until Amy was found and ring authorities to come to the ship to do the search as well. Why would you be thinking of the passengers or disturbing them once the girl was found and was the main priority at the time? Surely the passengers would have understood. And sightings of Amy just shocked me because obviously there hasn't been nowhere getting searched properly to catch these guys doing it. Legal system in everywhere really need to take things more seriously because it could have been someone close to them. Yeah, I mean, unless there's a policy by the cruise ship to simply not draw attention to any kind of crime, which there apparently is on a lot of these cruise lines. So let's go to Chris Fenwick, the videographer who took this video of Amy dancing with yellow. I mean, it's kind of hard to see exactly how close they're dancing, but some people seem to think that they're very, very comfortable with each other. I don't see them holding hands, but I mean, I don't know. Some commenters are saying it looks like they were really close and possibly holding hands. So this is from chrisfenwick.com. He posted, Amy Bradley is missing, Monday, March 1st, 2010. My involvement with Amy Bradley, last updated July 27, 2001. Well, and it was reposted 2010, I guess. Okay. I have finally made the video mentioned in the story publicly available on YouTube. My name is Chris Fenwick. I am a television director and video editor. In the spring of '98, I was working for a corporate client on the Rhapsody of the Seas, a Royal Caribbean cruise ship. My job was to produce an entertaining video for my client. The video was to be shown on the last night of the cruise. I had one cameraman working with me that came with us from California, and we also paid Royal Caribbean for the partial use of their staff video engineer. His name was Steve. Because of the nature of editing in the short turnaround environment, I spent nearly the entire duration of the cruise in my cabin working. When I tell people that I was working for 10 days at sea on a cruise ship, they assume it was just a walk in the park. However, it was a difficult week, very hard work, and long hours. Wednesday, March 24th, 1998 morning. On Wednesday morning, rumors and stories began to circulate around the cruise ship that some girl had committed suicide. We heard these stories from Steve, the crew member who was working with us. As sad as the story is of a young woman being on a cruise in the Caribbean and still decided that she needed to end her life I still had a whole lot of work to do. I couldn't be distracted by the news. Steve, in black with the video camera, and Bob Briggs, the director camera operator who came from California. Thursday, March 25th, 98. On or about Thursday afternoon, I decided to take Steve up on his offer to come and see his edit suite that was on board the ship. Being kind of a gear slut, I'm always interested in equipment used in my industry. During my short visit to see Steve in his edit suite, he casually informed me that he had been instructed by ship security to make sure there were no images of the missing girl in his cruise video. The type of videotape that you would buy at the end of your cruise showing all the great things that you had done all week on board. Thursday afternoon, someone came by and posted a flyer on my door while I was working. It was a yellow piece of paper, as I remember, could have been white, that had a photo of the missing girl. Her name was Amy Bradley. I put the flyer in my room but continued to work. I had 2 computer systems and an edit system in my stateroom. Somehow, by Thursday evening, I had heard that maybe she had not committed suicide, but there was a possibility that she was abducted. There was even a suspect. His name was Yellow, obviously a nickname, but he was the bass player in one of the ship's bands. I am not sure where I came across this info, although it was probably through Steve and his inside behind the scenes contacts. The reason I remember this is that at some time late Thursday evening, I took a break from my work to go to the studio on the 11th deck of the boat and have a soda and watch the people dance. I remember seeing yellow around the disco, and I vividly remember thinking, wow, there is that guy they think took the girl. He looks kind of creepy. I went back to my room to work more. Now, I'm always hesitant to kind of take too much from intuition, but are multiple people here stating that this guy's creepy, the waiters are creepy? Is it creepy because they're all connected? And that, I mean, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. Friday, March 26, 98, 3 a.m. Sometime later that night, probably around 3 a.m., I took another walk to stretch my legs. It was not unusual for me to work all night and sleep during the day. While I was standing on the 8th deck, my deck, looking over the large center atrium of the boat, I witnessed two young girls, probably around 19 or 20, walk toward the stern of the boat on the starboard side. Minutes later, a young man ran from where the women had walked toward the bow of the boat. Soon, a woman with blonde hair and another gentleman, and at least one man from the Royal Caribbean, began to congregate on what may have been the 6th deck across from where I was standing. They began to question the two young girls. It was around this time that it became obvious to me that the people I was watching was the family of the missing girl. I was curious as to why this meeting was taking place in the middle of the night, and being wide awake, I decided to eavesdrop to find out what I could. Apparently, the two girls had seen Amy Bradley, the missing girl, during the early morning hours of the day she vanished. They were trying to find out anything and everything that the two girls had seen. What I witnessed was the older woman was immensely distraught. I overheard her saying, quote, "Please think very carefully. Did you see anything else? Are you sure you didn't hear anything else? Are you sure you didn't see anything else?" End quote. The poor woman was so frantic, I just remember everyone trying to get her to calm down and be cool. Later, I found out her name was Eva Bradley. After seeing the frantic nature of the woman, it kind of put the humanity on the story for me. It dawned on me that the woman who had disappeared on Tuesday morning, and we had heard that she had been in the disco on Monday night, if that was the case, we were in the disco with one of our cameras on Monday night. Maybe I had some video of Amy in my room on one of my videotapes. I returned to my room and began scanning through tapes that would have been shot on that night. Amazingly enough, on the last tape of the night and the last shot of the tape, there was indeed a shot of Amy dancing on the dance floor. The part that was really creepy to me was that the shot revealed that Amy was dancing with Yellow, the man that was suspected of having something to do with her disappearance. Immediately, I got out a blank Beta SP tape, a broadcast tape format, and made a component-level dub of the master tape showing Amy dancing with Yellow. I wrote my name and a room number on the tape label and put it in a box. I then returned to the location of the early morning meeting between the crew and the Bradley family and the two young girls. There was a man there, but the meeting had broken up. And props to this guy. I mean, seriously, props to this guy. Friday morning, 4 a.m., I approached this man and asked if he was part of the Bradley family. He informed me that he was a good friend of the family. I told him my story and how I came to have this tape in my possession, and told him that I would gladly meet with the family if they wished to see the tape in my room. The man told me that he would take care of it and thanked me for his help. It was now somewhere around 4 a.m. I returned to my room to sleep. Friday morning, 9 a.m. Later that morning, I went to where breakfast was being served and witnessed the Bradleys and the man I gave the tape to having breakfast together. I was dying to know if the Bradleys wanted to see the tape, but I didn't want to impose on their time. They were visibly distraught. However, the man I gave the tape to walked away from the table for a moment, and I approached him and asked if he had given the tape to the family. At that time, he had told me that he had given the videotape of Amy dancing with Yellow to the authorities. Friday afternoon. This is where the story gets really interesting to me. Mid-afternoon on Friday, while I was in my room working, I received a phone call. The man on the phone told me that his name was Lou Costello. I probably made some sort of joke about Abbott. He asked me if I was the guy with the videotape of the missing girl. I told him yes, I was. At that point, he told me that he was going to have to get that tape from me. I informed him that there was no way I was going to give up the master tapes. I never give away master tapes, and that besides that, it was on a tape format that I'm sure he didn't have access to. After all, I had seen the onboard edit facilities. And that I would be glad to make a broadcast quality dub of the tape if he liked. He then informed me that the FBI were involved in this and that they would want the original tapes. I told him that if that was the case and the FBI wanted my master tapes, then they would have to contact me. Smart guy. He's not going to be hoodwinked here. I also informed Mr. Costello that the entire reason for me being on this boat was to finish editing the tape that needed to air that night at midnight in the ship theater. I would be done with my duties around 12:30, and I would be glad to help him or make copies or whatever at that time. However, would he please allow me the time I needed to finish my job? At that, I believe Mr. Costello said he would be in contact with me later, and then he hung up. That was the last I heard from Mr. Costello. I finished my job, I packed my equipment, and the next day I got off the boat in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and went home to San Francisco. You know, if they have all these digital locks and all this stuff, would they also be able to trace where that call came from? Months later, maybe 4 to 6 months later, after telling the story of the missing girl to everyone I knew, it occurred to me that no one had ever called to get the master tapes that Lou Costello had insisted the FBI was going to need. So I took it upon myself to call the FBI. I have no recollection of what office I called or who I talked to, but someone took a message that I had a videotape of dancing with the person that was believed to be involved in her disappearance. The person who took the message informed me that it would be forwarded to the officers in charge of the case. At that point, I felt that I had done everything that I could do. December 98. Somewhere around December 98, I watched the story of Amy Bradley and America's Most Wanted on television. I was somewhat surprised that they did not show the tape that I had supplied to the authorities through the man that was the friend of the Bradleys. Summer 99. Then in the summer of 99, Amy Bradley's story was on TV again, but this time it was on Unsolved Mysteries. After the segment aired, my older brother called me and asked if I had seen the piece and wondered why the video that I had was not part of the story. I informed him that I had no idea. Unknown to me, my brother had called the Unsolved Mysteries hotline and asked about the videotape and wondered if they knew about its existence. A few days later, my brother got a call from Eva Bradley, the mother of Amy. She talked with him and he informed her of some of the details of my story, and Eva asked if she could talk with me. Soon, Eva Bradley and I were talking on the phone. After hearing some of the ordeal and the pain that she and her family had gone through, I told them that I would do what I could to help. I found out that the man that I had given the tape to was Mike McCord. Mike is Ron Bradley's boss. Ron is Amy's father. The Bradleys were on a business trip that was a perk of the salespeople in their company. Mike McCord apparently had given my tape to one of the FBI officers that was handling Amy's disappearance. It was the last time that the copy of the tape was seen. Okay, this is really mind-shocking and creepy on so many levels, because initially, like, reading the beginning of this account, I was going to assume that this man that was with them was somebody from the cruise line, and he just took the tape and hid it for whatever reason, either involved or not involved, and just wanted to sweep it all under the rug, or whatever the case may be. I mean, this is really weird. This is his boss, so he never gave them the tape, or allegedly he gave the FBI the tape, but I mean, this is weird. So my own commentary, so this is Chris Fenwick's commentary here. The images on the tape are interesting and quite frankly kind of creepy. However, the pictures are not the most interesting thing about the videotape. What is more interesting is the tape's story, its journey, and its eventual disappearance. I gave the tape to Mike McCord. Mike tells us he gave the tape to the FBI. 12 hours later, I get a call from Lou Costello, head of security. Lou Costello is head of ship security, but he has no connection officially with the FBI. McCord gave the tape to an FBI agent, allegedly. I mean, did they confirm that? See, again here, so he said he gave the tape to an FBI agent, or was it someone posing as an FBI agent? Is McCord, but wouldn't McCord still tell the Bradleys about the videotape? Which apparently he did not. So either he's complicit here, or he gave the tape to someone who he believed was FBI, who wasn't actually FBI. They were just posing as FBI. Or was it FBI, but was it like a rogue FBI agent that was possibly connected to this human trafficking ring and the cruise line? And other FBI agents were not, but this particular guy was. Was that their inside man? I mean, I don't know. This is all very weird. So anyway, continuing on here, McCord gave the tape to an FBI agent. It has never been seen since. Why? Why is it that Lou Costello is doing the work of the FBI trying to get the original tapes from me? Why wouldn't the FBI send an agent to my room if it was so important? Better yet, ask yourself this question. Why does Lou Costello even know about the tapes that I have? Why is the FBI talking with the head of security about details of the case? I mean, he's assuming here that the guy really was an FBI agent and McCord really did give the tape to the FBI. I mean, I'm not convinced here. Just based on all this information, I'm not convinced. The FBI is pretty adamant about not sharing details of a case that is in progress. I also find it highly suspicious that Steve, the ship video guy, was instructed to remove all the images of Amy in the video that he was editing. Granted, it would be kind of a downer for you to show your travel video to someone and then say, oh yeah, there's this girl that vanished on board. The fact that the request came from security and not a PR person is weird, at least it is to me. That's a good point there. Yeah, if it came from PR, that would make more sense. Conclusion, and was it a request or an instruction order? Conclusion, in the summer of 99, I made another copy of the tape for the Bradleys. I have spoken with Eva several times over the last few years. Everyone always asks me, did they ever find Amy Bradley? The answer, tragically, is no. There have been some very credible sightings by people who made positive IDs of Amy. The family has been swindled out of tons of money by people who prey on these types of victims. It really is a sad state of affairs. If you want more information about Amy Bradley, there are tons of online things about her. I would suggest you go to Google and search for Amy Bradley. Okay. Wow. I mean, this is just insane. So some more details in the episode of Vanished with Beth Holloway on the Bradley case, aired May 23rd, 2011. I'm going to play the clip here. But basically, the two young girls, college-age girls, they were the ones who said they saw Amy with Douglas in the elevator. And apparently that's the conversation that Fenwick overheard or saw or whatever.
We were just walking down the hallway, and these two college-age girls, they came screaming up to us, just frantic. We saw Amy with a band member. We saw Amy, and we couldn't find you. Where have you been? And we said, well, we just got back on the ship. What are you talking about?
The girls claimed that around 5:45 a.m., they saw Amy heading back to the ship's all-night dance club with the band's bass player, a Grenadian man by the name of Alistair Douglas.
They said they saw them come up the elevator, and then when the elevator door opened to the disco, she turned and they stepped into the disco.
So the very last person that Amy was known to be seen alive with is Alistair Douglas.
Yes, it's him.
Amy's brother Brad also recalls seeing her dancing with Douglas earlier, the night of her disappearance. More importantly, Brad recalls a strange encounter he had with Douglas the next morning.
He comes up to me, and the first thing he said was, he said, hey man, I'm sorry to hear about your sister.
Alistair Douglas's statement triggers alarm bells with the Bradleys, because at that time, the only people that knew Amy was missing were the captain and his security team.
That's the only people beside Brad that knew that we were looking for Amy.
The Bradleys report the incident to the FBI, and Alistair Douglas is brought in for questioning. Authorities want to know how he knew about Amy's disappearance, even though it was never announced. But Douglas changes his story and claims to know absolutely nothing about Amy's disappearance.
What are your next steps?
They brought a polygrapher on the ship, and they did a polygraph.
Ship security and law enforcement both question Douglas, but there is not enough evidence to detain him.
Wow. So you're thinking, he's it. You know, I want to get to him because that is the person that's last known to be seen with my daughter alive. Do you get to him?
I never had anything personally to say to him. I was in another world. I was trying to just stay alive. Ron remembers sitting outside of the interview room, and he had to just about be restrained.
He came out with a thumbs up and kind of smiling like everything's cool. And it was all I could do to keep my composure at that time.
I mean, it's actually kind of curious, the overlap here. And the other curiosity here in terms of all the strangeness with the crew members and who knew what when is that here, Brad Bradley gave his recollection of the encounter the morning after, or the morning of rather, when nobody knew that she was missing except the captain and security, and yet Douglas, the guy she was last seen with, is offering his condolences? sorry to hear about your sister to Brad Bradley? Does that make any sense? Or, I mean, some people think, I guess some people can allege that Brad made that up, but, I don't know. If not. And according to this Vanished episode, when the FBI questioned Douglas, he claimed to know nothing about the disappearance at all, ever. So that's kind of weird. So this entire episode, Vanished with Holloway, this is kind of crazy because they go a little bit more in depth into the taxi driver who saw her specifically. He's parked in front of the disembarking cruise ship. So he's there to pick up passengers specifically to the cruise ship. He said she ran out distraught and wanted a phone.
On April 21st, Brad and Ron decide to return to Curacao to search for Amy once again.
We went down to hand out flyers all over the island, and we rented a vehicle and just, went all over the place.
Within 24 hours, Ron and Brad receive a critical tip. A taxi driver recognizes Amy from the flyer and tells them he saw her the morning she vanished.
He walked up to us and pulled us aside and told us that he wanted us to know that Amy was on that island.
According to the driver, Amy approached his cab just minutes after the cruise ship docked on the island.
He was waiting at the ship where people got off, and he said she came up kind of frantic, acting, and asked where the telephone was. He said, "I'll never forget her green eyes. She has green eyes."
It seems the Bradleys finally have the break they are looking for.
Now, what does that mean here? So he's confident it's her, and she's alone at this particular moment. So was she kind of escorted off the ship? Did she fear something happening on the ship? Was she possibly assaulted by one or more people? Where was Douglas leading her? Was she assaulted by Douglas and possibly other individuals, possibly crew members to the point, and maybe even security, to the point where she felt unsafe on the ship? This might be the McGuire theory here, because why would she get off the ship willingly by herself? If she got off willingly by herself, the only possible explanation there is she didn't trust the security or that she could even make it back to her room. Maybe she even thought her family would be in danger and she didn't want to go back there. She wanted to get off the ship and get to the authorities. Is that what happened? Because if ship security is involved, what would a young female do in that situation? Or was she escorted off the ship by somebody, but why would she not make a scene about that if she was being escorted not of her free will? And then she ran away from that person? Was she drugged and she's coming in and out of the drugging? And at this particular moment, she wants to get to a phone. Does she want to phone the U.S. Embassy? What is the goal here? And this taxi driver, obviously he doesn't know the backstory at the moment it's happening, but it's just kind of weird. So she didn't want to get in the cab and get to the embassy. She wanted a phone. What does everybody make of this?
With the help of local police, Ron and Brad scour the tiny island for any trace of Amy.
It was a crazy search. They were looking in huts and going in the water and crawling up on the back of boats.
We were just looking for her, looking for any clues, anything.
Then, 4 days into their search, Brad hears an eerily familiar voice.
I heard Amy call my name. Pretty distinctive growing up my whole life with the way that she would say my name and call me.
The voice seems to be coming from a passing van.
So we kind of whipped a U-turn and followed the car that we thought it came from back in all these neighborhoods and little side roads and things.
Eventually, Ron and Brad catch up to the van.
And we got up to him and just some guy, by himself in the van. So either, we obviously followed the wrong car or heard what I wanted to hear. I don't know, but it was a little bit intense.
And now we have this account from Brad Bradley. Some people believe that this puts his credibility into question because he hears Amy calling him in a very distinct way that only she calls him. Okay, so it's either her or his imagination. It's not a random person calling Brad because there might not be a reason for that, and if they would randomly call Brad, it wouldn't be in the distinct way that Amy calls him. So there's only two options. He's hallucinating, basically, or it's really her. Because why would a random stranger be yelling his name in a distinct way that Amy yells his name? If it is her, now it's from a passing van. It's so hard to write this off because if this is legitimate, but this is also a quite a period of time later. This isn't within, a day. Is she randomly going to be transported in a white van at the same time that they're on the street searching? I mean, if they're searching the streets day after day after day, which they probably were, maybe? But yeah, this whole thing is just so haunting.
May 1999. After watching a TV segment on Amy's case, a Canadian businessman by the name of David Carmichael calls the Bradleys with an astonishing lead. He also tells them he has no interest in their reward fund.
I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget it. He said, I have seen your daughter. I've absolutely seen your daughter.
According to Carmichael, the encounter took place while he was scuba diving in Curacao, some 5 months after Amy vanished.
We were over in a small area where we wash off the equipment in fresh water, and I looked down the beach and I saw a girl walking down the beach with being flanked by 2 people.
At first, Carmichael paid no attention to the 3 strangers. But then, the woman did something bizarre.
The minute she heard I spoke English, she picked up her pace and was putting distance between her and the 2 people that were flanking her. Within what was probably seconds, she was within 3 or 4 feet of me.
According to Carmichael, just as the young woman was about to speak, the 2 men caught up to her and pulled her into a nearby cafe. David decides to follow them.
Something went off in my brain to tell me, gather more information about this person.
David notices a scar on the woman's right shin, and she also seems to be pointing out several tattoos. She has a Tasmanian devil on her left shoulder blade. David's description is chilling.
The credibility is unquestionable.
This time, this could be it. This could really be Amy.
He described her to a T, to include her tattoo.
I was 2 feet away from her. 2 feet. That's how close I was. I don't even have to think about it. It's 100%. It's not 99, it's 100. It's 100%. It was her. It was.
If the woman on the beach was Amy, then who were the mysterious men with her?
It made us wonder what type of situation Amy was in and who had or who was controlling her.
The Bradleys contact local authorities, who search the area where the encounter allegedly took place. They find no sign of Amy.
Now, looking at Carmichael's account here, his sighting, there's a few problems here. So number one, he knows something is off just from the situation. She's trying to motion to her tattoos or whatever. They're rough enough with her in kind of moving her to the cafe away from him that he decides to follow because he feels something is off. Now, if he knows something that is that off, why wouldn't he at least ask, "Are you okay, lady?" Like, he just stood by her 2 feet away. He said he's not 99% sure. He's 100% sure it's her. Obviously, he doesn't know who it is at the time. But if this is a woman, a distraught woman, or some woman being held against her will, I mean, does he not even ask? Like, "Are you okay, lady?" Or are these two guys bothering? Like he felt something was off enough to follow her into the cafe and then did nothing. I mean, what is going on here? What is going on? I mean, this is kind of weird.
2 years after Amy Bradley vanished from a cruise liner, her family seems to be closing in on the truth. Former Special Forces officer Frank Jones and his reconnaissance team are convinced Amy is being held against her will on the Caribbean island of Curacao. But first, Jones needs a final payment of $100,000. The Bradleys' employer is willing to help out, but wants to make sure the tip is legitimate before he hands over the cash. So on November 1st, 2000, he sends a trusted source, security contractor Tim Buckholes, to Curacao in order to monitor Frank Jones and his team.
He's very kind, he's very gentle, but he's scary. He's the kind of guy that can go on an island or go anywhere in the world, and he just straight up says, "I need to meet the criminal element here."
After just a few hours on the island, Buckholz contacts the Bradleys with some heartbreaking news.
He called us saying that Frank Jones is down here drinking rum and having a good time, and with absolutely nothing going on concerning Amy.
Tim has also discovered that Frank Jones is not the former Special Forces operative he claims to be. Jones is a con artist, and that the alleged photos of Amy are phony as well.
He had gotten copies of that tattoo from us that he took to a tattoo parlor, and they did a stencil and put it on this girl. And they posed her on the beach as Amy in order to get some additional funding.
How much money had Iva given to Frank?
Frank had actually taken over $200,000 from that family. And the family, it wasn't the family's money, it was donations, and everybody that was giving donations to help find Amy.
In February 2002, Frank Jones is arrested in Virginia and charged with mail fraud. He is sentenced to 5 years in prison and ordered to repay every penny he conned from the Bradleys. But what the Bradleys can't recoup is the time they've wasted on this bogus investigation.
Frank Jones stole 2 years of our ability to be able to do the legitimate things that we needed to do to find Amy. I think about it at this point and I get so angry over the amount of time that we lost.
Now, with the Frank Jones situation, like I postulated, even before watching the snippet here from Vanished, I postulated that maybe Frank Jones was onto something, and then some kind of forces got to him and told him to admit to making up the fraud. But here, Eva Bradley is clearly stating that he sent them surveillance photos. Now, not necessarily showing Amy's face. Now, I don't know if these were the real photos shown here on Vanished. I'm assuming they're not, because they look exactly like the woman who was playing Amy for the previous encounter, which obviously there's no footage of. But either way, they're stating here that these photos that Frank Jones sent, these surveillance photos, had Amy's tattoos, or at least some of them, and was similar in Amy's build and posture. Now, how difficult is it to find out? Maybe they just found a doppelganger who had a similar tattoo, and if the photos were from a decent enough distance away, you couldn't tell, and they decided to exploit the situation. Or maybe it really was her. Maybe they had no plans of rescuing her, but they really did cite her, and they showed those photos. They sent the photos, and they really were planning to extort. Let's not fall for any false dichotomies here. But what does everybody make of the whole Frank Jones saga? This is kind of weird as well. Now, what's interesting is apparently there was a certain amount of investigation done that they did copy the tattoo, and they had some girl who was posing as Amy, which is why there's no face in the photos. Now, how was all that confirmed? I mean, was this an after-the-fact explanation? I mean, obviously you'd have to have both. You'd have to have the sets of photos to confirm. And the girl that's claiming to have been the model for this, again, is this all a setup where it really was her and they're trying to explain away that it wasn't her? Because obviously if they're going to put this operation in place, they would have, a certain amount of resources to do this. Again, I am not claiming anything is true or untrue. This is mind shock, but I just found that curious. Like, how definitive was all of this?
In December 2005, the Bradleys' tireless efforts yield another breakthrough on the tiny island of Barbados. It involves an Ohio woman named Judy Maurer.
What took you to Barbados, Judy?
My husband and I went on a cruise. The ship docked in Barbados at Bridgetown, and we decided to go downtown and do some shopping.
While using a department store ladies' room, Judy finds herself trapped in a frightening situation.
I went into the stall. As soon as I got into the stall and sat down, I heard somebody coming into the restroom, and I heard men's voices. My automatic response was to hide because I was afraid they came in to rob me or, rape me or something. I didn't know what was going on.
Gripped with fear, Judy listens as one of the men makes a threatening statement to someone.
He must have said 5 or 6 times, the deal's at 11 o'clock. and you better be ready to go. He goes, and I'm warning you, you better cooperate. This is my deal, and you better not mess it up. And he just kept saying that.
You had to have been just trembling.
I was petrified. I was practically holding my breath because I'm thinking, I'm witnessing something that I shouldn't be witnessing.
Then, as quickly as they enter the restroom, the men leave. But Judy Maurer is still not alone. Cowering by the sink is a young woman who appears to be in her early 30s.
She looked like she's about ready to cry. So I tried to talk to her because I could see that she was just really distraught. So I said, well, where are you from? And she talked so softly that I could barely hear her, but at the time I thought she said Virginia.
What the woman told Judy next was unmistakable.
So then I says, well, what's your name? And then real softly, she says, Amy. And
What did you do when she said her name was Amy?
Well, I said, oh, my daughter's name is Amy. She got the most horrid look on her face. Her mouth flew open, and she did a pivot towards me and then starts walking towards me and getting in my space like this. And she did that 3 times, like she was trying to get me to be quiet.
That instant, the men's voices reappeared outside the door.
I heard a pounding on the door real loud, and I could hear a man making noises. And then the door flew open about this far. And as soon as that happened, she kind of grimaced and just stood there like she was frozen.
Panicked, Judy bolts out of the bathroom and past 4 men waiting outside. She never sees the woman again, or at least for 9 months, when Judy comes across the most recent photos of Amy in an article about missing persons.
Judy, I mean, when you saw this young woman's face, did you instantly feel that is the young woman I saw?
I'm looking at this picture and I'm going, oh my God, that girl looks so familiar. I think that's the girl I saw in Barbados. And when I read it, I realized her name was Amy.
Judy ultimately contacts the Bradleys, who alert the FBI. Using Judy Maurer's eyewitness account, the feds create composite sketches of the woman and her alleged abductors.
That lead was absolutely phenomenal, lifted our hope, our spirit. I knew she was alive. I know she is alive.
But by the time detectives follow up with the department store, no one remembers seeing Amy or her captors.
We thought we had finally found her, and that wasn't the case. So it was just back to square one again.
So now examining the Judy Maurer account here from Vanished, what does everybody make of that? A little bit more detail there. She rushes out. There's 4 men right outside the bathroom. I mean, that's kind of weird. And she does not go to authorities over that. I mean, that's troubling. A distraught woman, some threats about a deal of some kind, and 4 men congregating outside the woman's bathroom at this department store. I mean, it's kind of random, but would you report that to somebody? I mean, that's kind of weird, even obviously not knowing that it's Amy Bradley, but that there's a distraught woman and that there's 4 men. I mean, this is kind of weird. The other interesting footnote is that Maurer says that the woman she saw looks exactly like the 2005 photograph from the adult website, which we'll be getting into in a moment.
In September 2005, the Bradleys receive a shocking tip. An anonymous source sends them photos he found online. The woman in the pictures bears a striking resemblance to Amy.
Could these possibly be Amy? Heavy makeup, kind of wild hair. My sister, the artist, first thing she does is she takes the picture. She said, squint your eyes at that picture and see what you see. And Beth, when I squinted, it was like, it just shocked me. It was just Amy.
Even more telling is the fact that the pictures were pulled from an adult website based in the Caribbean, and the young woman is being advertised as a female escort. After droves of false leads and dashed hopes, the Bradleys want to be 100% sure it's really Amy.
We got in touch with a forensic detective in one of the police departments, and he took those pictures and he took Amy's pictures and he did overlays.
The forensic detective determines that facial structure, hairline, and multiple ear piercings make the girl in the photo a perfect match for Amy.
He gave us the complete breakdown on it, and he said, I will tell you that I will bet my career that this is Amy.
Investigators begin tracing the IP address of the website hosting the pictures. Coming up, just as they're honing in on the source of the photos, another woman's terrifying encounter strikes a new level of fear in the Bradleys and drastically alters the course of the investigation.
It had to have been just sheer panic.
It scared me to death. I thought, are they coming in to rob me or rape me? Or I didn't know what to do.
After nearly 8 years of false leads and multiple sightings, shocking photos have been found on a website advertising prostitutes in the Caribbean. The pictures seem to confirm that Ron and Iva Bradley's daughter Amy has been abducted and forced into sexual slavery.
When I first looked at the picture, it wasn't the Amy that I know. It wasn't the soft, kind, innocent Amy. The picture looks like a harsh and tormented Amy. And it's tough to look at.
Investigators are having trouble pinpointing the exact location of the website's IP address. Until that happens, they will be hard-pressed to move the case forward.
Okay, so regarding this photo from this adult website that this forensic specialist from the FBI is betting his career that it's her. I mean, that's curious. That's curious. I mean, he's dead sure. I mean, obviously they look extremely similar. If it's not her, what is it? Some kind of doppelganger that just happens to look exactly like her. We are going to go so far into mind shock land right now to the point of possibly solving this entire case. And not just this case, but possibly other missing persons cases. Because this is just really, really insane here. So I hope everybody's sitting down for this, because AmyBradleyIsMissing.com forum has put together some astonishing, mind-shocking connections. I don't know what to make of this, but this is mind shock, so we're going to go through all of it. So the website no longer up, affordable-adult-vacations.com. And this is where supposedly these photos came from. So from 2002 until 2008, Amy's photograph appeared on the website for an escort resort in Venezuela. The resort was known as Affordable Adult Vacations in Playa El Agua, Margarita Island. Owners of the Affordable Adult Vacations Resort claimed Amy's website photograph had been obtained from a source in, anybody want to guess? Curacao. The owners of the escort resort still have resorts in the Caribbean. The photographs of Amy were forensically evaluated by Wesley Neville, a certified forensic artist at the International Association for Identification, and a law enforcement officer in the state of South Carolina. It was determined that the photographs are Amy. Eva Bradley explained the forensics work done by Wesley Neville on Beth Holloway's Vanished. And the owner of this Affordable Adult Vacations company based in Florida is none other than someone who has since been arrested. This is Alfred and Jennifer Cotton of Florida, who have been arrested. Alfred Cotton worked at Affordable Adult Vacations in Playa El Agua, Margarita Island, for a number of years until the group left in 2007 and established new resorts in the Dominican Republic. There is still one resort on Margarita Island that is connected to this group. Cotton was in charge of the AAV, the Affordable Adult Vacations yacht. The yacht was kept in Perlamar. Cotton made all reservations and schedules. This is probably the reason why he has been reportedly seen with Amy in various southern Caribbean harbor locations, in addition to the report from San Francisco, which we will get to in a moment, that will possibly tie all of this together. So here's an article. New York County District Attorney's Office. Husband and wife indicted for facilitating sex tourism through Tropical Adult Vacation Company. These are the booking images from Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, Alfred Cotton and Jennifer Lee Cotton. Defendants allegedly sold sexual services from prostituted women to visitors to the Dominican Republic. Manhattan DA Cyrus R. Vance Jr. today announced the indictment of Jennifer Cotton, 49, and Alfred Cotton, 50, a married couple, for facilitating sex tourism by U.S. citizens to the Dominican Republic through their company, Tropical Adult Vacation, TAV. Their arrests follow a 10-month investigation with the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Homeland Security investigations. The defendants are each charged in New York State Supreme Court indictment with one count of promoting prostitution in the third degree. The alleged family business for this husband and wife team was international sex tourism, said DA Vance. Companies like the one charged in this case create a demand for the sexual service of prostituted women abroad, many of which may be trafficked individuals. This is exactly why in New York it is illegal to sell prostitution-related travel services to any jurisdiction, at home or abroad. Those who pay for sex facilitate a black market that profits off the vulnerable, particularly women and children. The Cottons allegedly exploited women by bringing them into the prostitution for international sex travelers, thereby encouraging the growing problem of human trafficking, said Glenn Sorge, acting special agent in charge of HSI New York. HSI will continue to work with its law enforcement partners to pursue those criminals who place greed ahead of human dignity. Wow. I mean, this is pretty insane. So Tropical Adult Vacation and these associated services and companies, I mean, these are the websites that this woman who looks exactly like Amy Lynn Bradley was found on. Some of these resorts are currently the Astoria Hotel in Boca Chica. Now, coincidentally, there was an Amy Bradley sighting in San Francisco, April 18th, 2003, at Fisherman's Wharf. So let's go over this sighting, which for some reason isn't really mentioned anywhere. So also from amybradleyismissing.com, on April 18, 2003, Amy was seen at Pier 33, Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco. Two of the artist's sketches were completed from this sighting by an FBI artist from Quantico, Virginia. The witnesses were able to provide considerable information about Amy's handlers. So apparently there's more than one witness, and the FBI actually has sketches from this account, coincidentally, which match the sketches of these individuals in the Judy Maurer account in Barbados. What are the chances? Is everybody still with me here? What does everybody make of this? Why is nobody talking about this? I mean, these sketches are dead ringers for each other and also Cotton. I mean, look at this. I mean, sure, it's possible the guy's not Cotton, but the guy that's associated with the website where she's found also matches all these sightings. But continuing on here with the San Francisco sightings, Amy was with two handlers as they were watching a musician on the pier near the ticket area for Alcatraz. Amy and her two handlers were listening to the street musician. At one point, one of her handlers gave her foreign coins to drop into the musician's case. The witnesses eventually identified the woman with these two men as Amy Bradley. When Amy's handlers realized Amy had been recognized, they grabbed her and ran. As the handlers dragged her away, Amy stared pleadingly over her shoulder at the people who had identified her. At one point, she stumbled and fell to the ground. There were no cruise ships in the port that day. Amy was described as wearing a nautical trimmed jacket. The handlers were described in detail by the witnesses. They were wearing matching Hawaiian shirts and cheap sunglasses. According to the witnesses, the FBI sketches are like photographs. The sketches were on the FBI website for about 10 years. This was an extremely important sighting. And you know what's absolutely staggering and heartbreaking to think about? How many people had Amy encountered, and how many unreported sightings are there? Because if she was out and about with handlers, I mean, you would think there's plenty more sightings that were maybe never reported. But she's trying to get away or trying to get people's attention and just failing at every turn, including this naval officer. Some people actually allege that the naval officer might have been a plant by the traffickers to see what Amy would do, like as they're breaking in their escorts, prostitutes, whatever, to see if they're going to try to escape or try to get attention. And if he was paid off to be a plant, so to speak, is that why he didn't report it right away and then he made up that other story later because he felt guilty about being a paid off plant? Supposedly he also wrote a letter of apology to Amy's parents. But I mean, obviously that could be because he wasn't a plant and simply was a coward, or he was a plant and then he thought he wanted to bring the information forth anyway. And it's curious, that place burned to the ground, and then also this other place burned to the ground. Like, all these places are burning to the ground. I mean, it's kind of weird. There's also connections in the Natalie Holloway case to a developer who, there were some arson, fraud, and things of that nature. Apparently that's relatively common in the islands, but this San Francisco sighting is weird. So one of the witnesses spent 8 hours with the FBI artist. I mean, this is really weird. One of the San Francisco witnesses has provided important information. On the FBI website, the dark-haired handler was described as being in his early 30s, approximately 5'11", with dark, wavy, shoulder-length hair. The witness claims this description is not correct. The dark handler was about 5'5" or 5'6" at most. He was very short and thin. The FBI description was wrong. The other handler was obese with red hair and a red beard. I mean, this is weird stuff. Because they're sighting in San Francisco. Some people say, well, why would they be all the way out in San Francisco? Well, if there was a rich client that wanted to pay for services, I mean, who knows? Yeah, I mean, it does look exactly like Alfred Cotton, does it not? Does it not? I mean, he's wearing sunglasses, so obviously you can't say it's 100%. But it's definitely weird. It's definitely weird. So he just happened to have run the website where her pictures showed up, and he admitted they came from some kind of source in Curacao. What does everybody make of this? I mean, could this be any more damning? And they were based out of Florida. They even had their home phone number on one of the websites at one point. I mean, it's crazy. NaplesNews.com also had a write-up on this. Fort Myers couple charged with prostitution accused of running sex resort in Dominican Republic. Documents show that the Cottons ran their hotel out of Boca Chica, a small town near the capital that had been hit hard by sex trafficking since the earthquake in Haiti. That's when Haitian women and underage girls were sold into sex work as they fled their ravaged country. The city earned a reputation as a place where men and tourists could easily find and pay for underage girls to perform sex acts. Much of this happened within sight of residents and fellow tourists. Social workers told reporters the practice was out of control and difficult to crack down on. The tropicaladultvacations.com website doesn't specifically reference ages of the women made available, except in one reference. Quote, no matter what age, race, or body shape, you will have plenty of hot 20-year-old Dominican women falling over you at our adult sex resort, end quote. Adult prostitution is legal in Dominican Republic, but a third party benefiting from sexual proceeds is a crime. That's interesting phrasing. Huh. This is kind of insane, though. NewYorkDailyNews.com, Tuesday, March 15th, 2016. Florida couple admits to running sex tourism operation will serve 5 years of probation? That's it? That's insane. That's insane. They are permitted to serve the probation at their home in Fort Myers, Florida. Huh. Now, what's absolutely insane and possibly one of the greatest mind-shocking moments in the history of mind shock is that these websites also have photos of escorts who are eerily similar to some of the most infamous missing persons cases in history, in modern history. I mean, some of these are just such dead ringers. Some of them not so much. Some of them are absolute dead ringers. I mean, it is stunning and shocking in every sense of the word. And the fact that these websites were up and operational for years. I mean, Amy was there 2002 to 2008, 6 years, and only noticed several years in. I mean, you would think people would have noticed these. I mean, the FBI, who no doubt have to know about some of these websites. I mean, this is just mind-shocking, staggering. I mean, some of these are just absolute dead ringers, and these photos are all supposedly at these resorts, at all of these resorts here. I mean, this is absolute insanity. What does everybody make of this? I mean, this is one of the most mind-shocking cases just from these revelations. And then also this Cotton guy just happens to look like all the sketches of the man she was spotted in at multiple locations in multiple different countries. I mean, this is insane. Let's go to Unresolved Mysteries subreddit for another interesting post here from Technical. Something I vaguely remember reading about this case, and please correct me if I'm wrong. There was someone who came to the sub. They claimed to be a source close to the case. They made claims I'll list here as best I can remember them. 1. Supposedly, David Carmichael, the scuba diver who allegedly spotted her on the beach with 2 men, actually named Alistair Douglas, aka Yellow, as one of the men spotted with her. I mean, that would be insane as well. 2. Alistair Douglas's daughter was supposedly in contact with law enforcement, claimed that her father had pictures of Amy and was obsessed with her. Edit, something to add, this person also claimed that Alistair's daughter also claimed that her mother was extremely upset that he was obsessive over Amy and supposedly had pictures of her. And again, this is mind shock. I do not claim anything is true or untrue. I do not claim any theories are true or untrue. I do not claim anyone is innocent or guilty in any way about anything. We just go over all possible theories from all different sources and examine them for veracity to the best of our ability, trying not to fall for logical fallacies here, but this is what people are claiming. 3, as for the person who claimed to be close to the case, I believed they claimed that there were many more credible sightings of Amy than we have heard, and that they have supposedly tons of proof that she's alive. This person has posted on the sub before, but they have a habit of posting then deleting all of their posts. If you do a search for Amy Bradley, you may come across threads where tons of posts have been deleted. Most of these posts are probably from that person. 4, as for the pictures of that woman who resembles Amy, aka Jazz, I've read a ton of back and forth speculation on that. I remember quite a few people saying that this woman who's just a prostitute who resembles Amy, but is completely unrelated. Supposedly, people dug around and found other pictures of this woman outside of her profession. However, the insider has said that Eva Bradley, Amy's mother, believes that the Jazz pictures are definitely her daughter. Now, the insider here, a few people posting about this. This individual has gone from board to board for years, posting, deleting, dropping hints on their so-called insider knowledge, but never ever providing anything verifiable. When questioned about their claims, they either delete their post or say they can't talk about it because it might jeopardize the investigation. This happened at Sitcoms Online, it happened at Web Sleuths, it happened here. Lather, rinse, repeat. Technical responded, I agree with everything you've said 100%. The only thing that makes me have a little bit of trust in what the insider was posting is that a mod on Web Sleuths said that they had contacted Eva Bradley, Amy's mother, and she confirmed that the insider is close to the case and that they know this person. Huh. Interesting indeed. Other people are also speculating about Chris Fenwick, because coincidentally he is also from San Francisco. See, if it was a smaller town and not San Francisco, we could say, okay, that's damning. San Francisco, I mean, that's, it's a big city. It's a big city. Chris Fenwick happens to be the same place, one of the places where Amy Bradley was also sighted. Supposedly that was the only place she was sighted in the continental U.S. Is that correct? I mean, I don't know about these other sightings. I mean, there's rumors of many other sightings, but supposedly they're not in the U.S. other than San Francisco. Coincidentally, Fenwick's home, the guy that took the video of Bradley on the cruise ship. How coincidental is that he supposedly observed this meeting with the teen girls and this other guy at a random time in the middle of the night, late at night. I mean, it's a little weird. I mean, when you add it all together, it does seem a little weird. Was he involved in some way, or he knew something, or he knew people and were involved and he was too scared to come forward before and he's trying to come forward? I mean, I don't know. It's just so weird. Another post here. People also believe there's connections to the Natalie Holloway case because some of these guys supposedly know each other, like Alistair Douglas, Joran Vandersloot, and Alfred Cotton, as well as a few others associated with some of these companies, these escort companies. I mean, it's a little weird. It's definitely a little weird. So, Methodic87 posted this. Currently, I have contact with the company who had the picture on their website, Jazz, as I am asking for an adult vacation. This was also 6 years ago, so these are not new Reddit posts. I got some emails in which they even state they prefer at most white, lightly tattooed girls. They still continue with their vacation crap. It's hilarious and unbelievable. If you ask me, guys, and if I would be rich or knew specific people, I would build a task force of 50 men invading the Dominican Republic to expletive this, expletive up. I'm so sick when I read that the Department of Justice has more information and even sightings that they never went to. They did not follow them, nor did they release it. This is crazy. And again, the FBI, they had sketches up, then they took them down. The story of Amy Bradley's, the write-up on Amy Bradley, if you go on, again, web.archive.org, there's different details from before that are no longer there now. I mean, it's just so weird. So Methodic responded here, as I had further email contact with that page, Carlos, who is probably the owner or whatever position he has, told me that Jazz is married and lives near Santiago. I asked for proof, but he declined and said this would be the last message he would send me. That's all pure expletive. I will continue and will take further actions. They know 100% more about it. I am nearly 100% sure who at least had their hands on Amy the day she vanished. And the fun part is that this case may not be solved because authorities are doing nothing anymore. There's absolutely no pressure, and therefore nothing will ever happen. Yeah, this is weird. This is definitely weird. So this is 6 years ago. So this is around 2017, these posts. So many years after 2005 when they first were up on the website. Also, people speculate that the FBI, this is as of 6 years ago, has for the first time included age progression photos of Amy Lynn Bradley, which they did not in the years prior. So did they not think she was alive before? Now they do? I mean, that's definitely weird. Clutch responded with this interesting post. David Carmichael in the Maine. He identified her tattoos and a watch she was wearing that hadn't been made public. He identified one of her handlers as Alistair Yellow Douglas and would not keep quiet or bow to attempts by the cruise line lawyers to get him to change his mind. He has stuck to his guns. The naval officer is still racked by guilt that he did nothing and first agreed, then declined to take part in a documentary. Then there's the whole Jazz issue, which some people are convinced by and others doubt. She didn't just disappear into thin air. As far as I know, the only reported sightings that have been made public go back as far as 2005. Clutch at Straws also gave his thoughts here. I can only give you my theory based on what I've read about the case and about human trafficking and other related activity. Where I'm aware of human trafficking of white women and girls, it has predominantly come from former Eastern Bloc communist countries. There are stories of rural families in Moldova selling teenage daughters to gangs, along with the stories of girls being duped with tales of cleaning or secretarial jobs in Western Europe. I think the rest of it is for action movies like Taken. What follows is pure speculation on my part. While I don't doubt that Amy has been mistreated mistreated by whoever took her. I don't think the main purpose was she was taken for human trafficking. Taking her at the same time was very stupid. She was taken from a cruise ship where she was with her family, so it was always going to attract attention, but could have been a very smart move. At the time, immigration and entry-exit from ports in the Caribbean was done in handwritten ledgers. Should be very easy to move from place to place. A young white American woman would be far less suspicious to some customs or immigrations officers. She was also taken before 9/11. Moving anyone anywhere is much harder now, so she would be valuable to her handlers if they set up false papers in advance. Much harder to do that now. I believe she is used for trafficking, but as a mule or something similar. Why doesn't she raise the alarm or escape? As I said, I believe she will have been mistreated by her handlers to break down her resistance and spirit. There is also the report of the SUV full of foreign guys watching the Bradley's house who beat a hasty retreat when the police were called. What? Wait, what? That's insane. Is this one of the most mind-shocking cases? So what? There's an SUV full of foreign guys in Virginia watching the actual Bradley's house? If they were linked to her handlers, they could then show her photographs of her family at home and use this as leverage to get her to do whatever they want. I would also speculate even more wildly that she might be a mother now. If this is the case, then the child could be used as leverage to keep her on message. Nothing happens to the child as long as she cooperates and doesn't try to escape, raise the alarm. This is how North Korea keeps its diplomats in line and how they controlled the Japanese and South Koreans they kidnapped. She might even have the latitude to move about in certain areas on her own because after all this time, there may be little danger of her running. There are reports of trafficked girls, to return to that subject, who were allowed to leave the houses they were kept to go to the store and buy candy or something. None of them ever tried to run. We can only guess at her mindset after she has been held against her will for over 20 years. I mean, this is some mind-shocking stuff here. Another bizarre curiosity that's been uncovered on the Web Sleuths forum all the way back in 2012. The head waiter, I'm not going to read the post here that has his name because I don't think he's been publicly named anywhere, but the head waiter that was supposedly spotted friendly and talking to Amy in the days prior, his Facebook page has a shot of a picture of the Tasmanian devil randomly. So this is years later. He has, I mean, how many adults have just a random cartoon, let alone the Tasmanian devil, who's not the most popular? I mean, if it was a Mickey Mouse tattoo and he had Mickey on there, okay, maybe Mickey Mouse is kind of popular. The Tasmanian devil is definitely not one of the most popular cartoon characters ever. And why would a grown man have that? This is the tattoo on Amy's left shoulder is the Tasmanian devil. Now, what does this all mean? I mean, could it be coincidental? Of course. But if not, that might mean that possibly the crew, security, the band, a lot of these people might be getting some kind of money for delivering certain individuals off of cruises. Obviously, it can't be done frequently, but was it done in this instance? I mean, it's very, very difficult to say. There's just so many things that don't add up. The only other sighting I could find is on boards.cruisecritic.com that states, a poster here stated that the Bradleys finally left for home Friday, March 28th, the same day that the Rhapsody of the Seas returned to the docks at San Juan, Puerto Rico. And the same day, unbeknownst at the time of the Bradleys, that a witness who subsequently passed several lie detector examinations claimed to see Amy being forced into a cab there. So this is the first I've read about this sighting. So is there a Puerto Rico sighting by a witness who actually passed not one but several lie detector examinations of Amy being forced into a cab at the final destination of the Rhapsody of the Seas at the docks in San Juan? I mean, this is crazy. Or was that a non-legit sighting? I mean, I don't know. This is really weird. I mean, this San Juan sighting, what's weird to me is one is not like the others. If they wanted it to seem like she left, like she disembarked at Curacao, when she hadn't. Then again, if this sighting at San Juan wasn't really legitimate, but if this witness did indeed pass the lie detector tests, what does that mean? Does that mean she was somehow kept secretly on board, even past the FBI so-called thorough search? Unless, I mean, how many agents were doing the search? So from reports here, I found there were 2 plainclothes FBI agents, but were there more than that? If it was only 2, theoretically, if the crew is involved, they could have moved her back to an area that was already searched if she was incapacitated or whatnot. If there's only 2 agents searching the entire ship. I mean, this is tough. Or they had some kind of secret compartment that they were confident would never be found, but... Or maybe even kept her in a luggage area if she's drugged and not making any noise. I mean, the FBI couldn't have possibly opened every single luggage bag. But, I mean, unless they claim they did, I mean, that would be tough. I mean, this is really weird. Was she really still on board the entire time? It's so tough. It's so tough. Because if these characters that reported these sightings in other areas, like the cab driver and the scuba diver, if they're on payroll, maybe even the Navy guy, and she was never really there, because that doesn't seem smart to keep her there unless you have the support of corrupt government officials. Then that's really the only way you'd be parading her around on the beach, right? I mean, it's kind of weird, or just at a hotel, a brothel, whatever. I mean, also, this isn't like today where cell phones are recording everything every second, but yeah, it's tough. If it was some kind of government-connected officials doing this, they would feel confident in keeping her around there, even if that's the last place she was seen. But other than that, why would any kind of trafficking ring keep her in the place she was last seen, in the boat where the cruise ship was last docked? Wouldn't it make more sense to take? I mean, it wouldn't really make sense to take her back to the home port in San Juan either. But unless she was routed whatever way, I mean, it's really weird. It's definitely really weird. The final point I'm going to go over here is just so Amy Bradley was listed on the FBI's missing page, then she wasn't, and then she was listed again with the age progression photo. So what is the scope of this FBI investigation? So they thought she was missing, then they thought she wasn't? That she fell overboard, died, maybe suicide, whatever? And then they reconsidered again? So they're just going back and forth? I mean, this is just really weird on the side of the FBI here. Like, what information are they coming across? Actually, there'll be one more point here. I found a little bit more detail on the Carmichael sighting at Port Marie in Curacao. So this is also on amybradleyismissing.com forums. August 98, Amy was seen by 2 Canadian divers. So it wasn't just one guy making up a story. Apparently the other guy with him also saw her. So 2 Canadian divers on a popular Curacao diving beach known as Puerto Marie. Amy was with 2 handlers. One of the handlers was identified as Alistair Douglas from Rhapsody of the Seas. The Canadians did not immediately report the sighting of Amy. They delayed the reports until they were back in Canada. So again, I just thought it was kind of strange that they wouldn't even report to the police that there's a woman in distress, or at least find out if she's in distress, especially if they felt the need to follow her into the cafe. The Canadian divers identified Alistair Douglas as the person with Amy. Their information was reported to the FBI, and the witnesses presented the information to a federal grand jury. It appears that Alistair was hired by the people who had Amy after he was fired by Royal Caribbean. David Carmichael, the diver who testified for the federal grand jury, reported that Amy and the 2 men were walking towards him on the beach. He and his dive partner were collecting their equipment. Amy started moving directly towards him as if to speak. The man identified as Alistair Douglas quickly stepped between Amy and Carmichael. He gave Carmichael a menacing look. Carmichael was able to get a very good look at Amy. He and his partner went to the outdoor bar for a few minutes later where they could see Amy and her handlers. He described Amy's tattoos and the silver watch she had been given by her boyfriend. The man with Douglas was described as a blonde European type with a ponytail. Royal Caribbean was very disturbed when they learned that Carmichael had identified Alistair Douglas at Porto Marie. They tried to discredit him. They sent lawyers to his home in Canada, where they sat at his kitchen table with photographs of Alistair Douglas. This is insane. This is insane, and I actually just thought of an even more insane theory that I'm going to go over in a minute. So Amy's boyfriend was the manager of a restaurant in Virginia. One of his suppliers gave him a Das Equis watch, similar to the one above, but Amy's watch was a different color. Amy brought the watch with her on the cruise, and she was wearing it when she disappeared. Information about the watch had not been released to the media. David Carmichael accurately described the Das Equis watch to the FBI, the Bradleys, and the federal grand jury. He has no doubt that he saw Amy in Porto Maria. And maybe that's why, but not just because of all the tattoos and her looking exactly like that, but the exact watch as well. So this is 5 months after her disappearance. All right, so here's my final theory here, which is very, very dark. Okay. What if this Jones character is working with Carmichael? Maybe it really is Amy Bradley. This guy with the ponytail, supposedly one of these PIs, and then this associate of Jones who was suspecting that he was swindling the Bradleys and eventually came out with that information. What if it was all real and these are the actual kidnappers and they wanted a ton of money to return Amy? So they falsified this entire account with Jones. Jones was in on it the whole time, and it really was her. And then for whatever reason, this whole operation, it was thought to be too dangerous, and they pulled the plug on it for whatever reason. Does this also explain these weird guys in an SUV watching the Bradley home in Virginia? Because if they're all connected, and Carmichael was put up to this at a later time, I mean, is that possible? Does that explain everything? Is that why they also allowed the leak on the website of it being her? Or was that some kind of really sick taunt to the family? I mean, it's just kind of weird, because why would they put her picture up if they knew about it? I mean, nothing. And what about all the other photos of the other possible missing people? I mean, these are famous missing people, at least in the true crime sphere. I mean, this is insane. This is absolutely insane. Okay, if you think that's insane, there's one more sighting I was able to find information on here, also on this website. Amy Bradley is missing. Cuckoo's Lounge in Curacao. There was a report that Amy was often seen in a small club with underworld types known as Cuckoo's Lounge. The club was checked for the Bradleys by their sources in Curacao. There were unconfirmed reports that the owners of the Stellaris Hotel had also been operating the club in Salinja. By this point in time, many years had passed, the club had changed hands, and Amy was long gone. The original source would not come forward with additional information. So is this a case of locals just being scared, being well aware of this kind of underworld trafficking operation, and a few people here and there gave sightings and reports, and then maybe the actual people involved in the disappearance wanted to make extra money off the Bradleys by actually returning, or maybe the plan was never to return her, but it really was her. And they just made up the story about the guy in the blonde wig pretending to be the handler, and the stencil tattoos, etc., to cover up that plot. But we're about to go even further into Mind Shock land. So just continuing on here with these posts, we were unable to establish exact dates with the witness. The original report was made in 2005. After the initial report, the witness did not provide further information. It is so unfortunate because this information could have been so very helpful. We don't really know what was happening with this club. It was a club that didn't maintain regular hours, and it appeared to be a private club, yet it was there for many years. It seems as if it was a meeting location for these underworld types. It would have been so valuable to have more information about Cuckoo's Lounge. And I hope everybody's still sitting down because this is insane here. The owner of this Salinja property was from Aruba, and he leased the surrounding commercial units, one of which included the club where Amy was reportedly seen. The location next to Cuckoo's Lounge was a venue known as The Hype, offering live entertainment. As shown in this advertisement, DJ Diablo was a headliner. Does anybody want to guess who DJ Diablo is? DJ Diablo is Steve Crow's of Natalie Holloway infamy. And for those that don't know, he actually had been arrested in the Natalie Holloway case, Steve Crow's. So, I mean, the intersections here between the Holloway case and the Bradley, I mean, it's kind of hard to ignore this level of coincidence. I mean, this is insane. This is absolutely insane. And the owner is connected to the other property. Is that the property where the naval officer saw her? The Stellaris Hotel. So it's unconfirmed that those were the same owners operating. So not confirmed. I mean, wow. What does everybody make of this? I mean, this is just absolute insanity at this point. I mean, just the level of coincidence. I mean, it's out of this world. I mean, there's actually even more here. I mean, we've been going for a while. I'm gonna end this one here, but yeah, I'll be doing a follow-up. Particularly, I am curious what all the Mind Shock listeners, the hardcore logical true crime aficionados that have been following this case for a while. There's even more issues with the lawyers, with the cruise line. I mean, beyond what's going on here with the sighting. So, I mean, this is a tough one. This is a really, really tough case that seems plausible connected to other cases. But some of these just dead ringers are just absolutely hard to ignore. I mean, what is going on in this area? It's obviously heartbreaking on many levels and very, very perplexing. But hope everybody found another edition of Mind Shock True Crime interesting and informative. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal, help keep up awareness in cold cases, missing persons cases, wrongful convictions, and other topics. Just check the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube, help support the channel that way. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.